Cancer. Hello, Amanda here. Welcome to Unseen Hands Healing. This is going to be your small story reading for January. So for those of you who are new, for these small story readings, I choose a book off the shelf that seems to want to be speaking to you. I turn to a passage at random and then I will read that passage to you. We will then move over to cards where I will pull some cards and see if we can expand the story to how it is applying in your life at this time, at this very potent time, I might add, Cancer, because we are coming up on your lunar eclipse. Highly emotional moment, not to mention all the Saturn Pluto activity in Capricorn. So big week, interesting reading that's coming through. This is from Subsequent Performances by Jonathan Miller. He has a theater background. He's also a medical doctor. Fascinating minds, fascinating writer, performer, director, doctor, incredible person. So in this passage, Miller is writing about the use of metaphor compared to describe something in a very specific way, as opposed to showing a picture of it, for example. So here we go. All right. No picture, still or moving, could express the visual effect of Thomas Hardy's description of Tess when she first appears at a May dance. Here's the description. Phases of her childhood lurked in her aspect still. As she walked along today, for all her bouncing handsome womanliness, you could sometimes see her 12th year in her cheeks, or her 9th sparkling from her eyes, and even her 5th would flit over the curves of her mouth now and then. The effect of this description is undoubtedly pictorial, just as Henry James thought it might be, but it expresses both more and less than any picture might do. Hardy does not provide us with anything that one could properly call a likeness, and there are no details from which one could reconstruct an identikit picture of the young heroine. Conversely, no photograph could even begin to assert the simultaneous presence of all the developmental stages that Hardy claims to be recognized in one face. This also applies to the way in which Hardy tries to capture the appearance of Tess's mobile peony mouth. At one level, of course, the effect of this description could be much more successfully achieved by a picture that matched the color that Hardy is referring to. But even so, the experience of visualizing the lips under the auspices of the evocative word peony is inescapably different from seeing a photograph with peony-colored lips. Because apart from the color to which it corresponds, the word peony has connotations of delicacy, fragrance, perishability, and although the predicates are not picturable, the image that's generated by the word is subjectively infiltrated by these implications. Okay, what do I want to talk about? He's talking about the power of metaphor here. This description achieves its distinctive effect by exploiting the peculiar power of metaphor, for which there is no equivalent in a picture, or at least not an explicit equivalent. It is only in language, Cancer, I think this is important here, that one can state an explicit comparison between one thing and another, between lips and peonies. Okay, let's go to another part here. This example raised another issue of which I was scarcely aware until I began to write about it, and that is the kinesthetic effect of linguistic description. Of course, the medical doctor takes it to the body. Apart from the referential implications associated with the word peony, the imagery that is generated by reading the word has something that is necessarily absent from a picture. In seeing the word on the page, the reader voicelessly articulates it, and by rehearsing its delicate consonants, he finds himself receiving and delivering the chaste kiss that such lips deserve. What he's talking about is if you mouth the word peony, do it with me, you end up forming the physical kinesthetic experience of a kiss, of kissing those mobile peony lips, that mobile peony mouth. Visceral, yeah? The visceral experience of that word choice is something that a picture could never evoke. This has something to do with the process discussed by Gombrich in an article on portraiture. He points out that the artists sometimes have difficulty in capturing a likeness of the sitter's facial expression merely by looking at it. They cannot begin to paint what it looks like until they have rehearsed its feel on their own faces. If you stand behind the canvas and watch an artist painting a portrait, you will often see them mimicking the expression of the sitter as if the experience of putting on such a face enables them to see the expression for the first time. There's something here about language as a most powerful way of describing something so specific and so ephemeral, something that you want to capture, perhaps, Cancer, that can only be captured through metaphor. And not only that, the metaphor can only be generated, perhaps, through the art can only be generated through the physical experience, putting yourself through the physical experience of what that muse or that person might be experiencing. There's something very important in there for me that's kind of like nagging at me about you needing to put yourself in the physical experience of someone else in order to understand, in order to truly see it for the first time. A picture on social media or an image of a person cannot tell you what's going on. You have to put yourself in that embodied experience to understand their perspective and to be able to express from that perspective, maybe as an artist. There's also something about that peony mouth, those peony lips are really sticking with me. So maybe that's something significant for someone, or maybe I'm describing, that description, those descriptions of Tess that we read may be describing you, Cancer, or someone that you are close with. I don't know. This has been a long reading. Thanks for sticking with me. If you're still here, let's pull cards. What on earth can we illuminate about Tess, about the use of language and metaphor in describing? Now these cards are a little big for me to shuffle, so I just kind of like spread them out. I'm going to choose at random. Okay. Gonna have to trust me a little bit since you can't see the spread. What do we got? Very interesting, Cancer. Let's take a look. Might have to sit with this one for a second. The Nine of Cups. Strength. The Ten of Wands, which says completion. There's an emotional expansion with the Nine of Cups here. We're looking at Jupiter in Pisces, expansion on our dreamier emotions, even artistic emotions. I'm getting the way that Pisces can sometimes look at something with rose-colored glasses. And I'm getting that, like, from Thomas Hardy's perspective, looking at Tess and the description of her seeing, like, projecting all of her ages and her stages of development onto her face and her facial expressions, and associating her lips with these peony lips. There's a very visceral, sensual experience in sort of idolizing Tess, that is coming through this Nine of Cups for me. There's an indulgence inherent in that idolization. That can sometimes happen with Pisces energy. Idealizing something or someone, projecting all sorts of like emotional fantasies, projecting your emotional satisfaction onto another person, projecting perhaps your like happiness and sense of pleasure onto someone else. Very specific message here. And then interesting strength. This kind of feels like I don't know, I have this weird thing that's happening between these two. I keep getting flashes of like watching each other on social media, watching someone from afar, and like this one wants to be seen by this one, and this one is sort of like actively focusing elsewhere. And at the same time, this one is sort of idealizing this one as like the source of this happiness or this emotional, like sensual abundance and fulfillment and like even indulgence. But this one over here is just really trying to focus on their like simple life and like taking care of their plants and doing the things that they do. This is pretty specific. What a strange reading, Cancer. So pick your position here. I don't know which one is you. It might be different for all of you. Kind of get a sense that this might be you, but who knows? The Strength card, Leo energy. The sun being the source of that light in your life, Cancer, the source of that happiness. And it's like you're trying to get all you can out of this energy as the sun is going down. While this sun is very constant in the sky, this feels like a very steady energy, very grounded. And this is much less grounded, much more prone to fantasy and emotional indulgence, projection even. And then here we have the Ten of Wands, which says completion. It's Saturn energy, right? Saturn and Sag, yeah. Something has come to completion here. Something is... I don't know. You're waiting on... It kind of feels like this person over here is waiting for this one to finish whatever job they're doing or whatever thing that they are focusing on, and it's almost like, come back to me, come back to me. And there's this sense of this one is sort of faced with a choice of putting down a burden, like perhaps the emotional nature, the emotional energy coming from this one can feel like a weight for this other person. And so they're considering putting down that weight and bringing that to completion. That could be one read of this. What a weird, wild reading here, Cancer. It's interesting because strength for me talks about mercy. It talks about meeting the aspects of yourself that perhaps you fear with a sense of calm and compassion and open-heartedness and simplicity and acceptance. And it's almost like this person sort of choosing to ignore you or just like put their focus elsewhere right now is asking you to do that very thing that the Strength card offers here. It's asking you to do that work of self-reflection in a way that allows you to see the ways that you are maybe projecting emotionally and meet that with mercy for yourself and like mercy for this other person and like so much compassion and so much open-heartedness for yourself and like what you are going through, and to understand why you are maybe behaving the way that you are or feeling the way that you are feeling, why you have been projecting ideas onto them. I don't know, Cancer. Normally I reserve pulling any further cards for the other, for the extended reading, but I'm feeling the need to offer you a little something extra. I realize that here at this Cancer lunar eclipse, there's some extra emotions happening for you folks, for all of us. So I'm going to pull a card here from the Octus Bauman podcast deck and see if we can get any advice for Cancer in this situation. Again, maybe this is you. Maybe this is you. I don't know. You pick. What's the advice for Cancer here? Okay. Very Saturn energy, Saturn and Capricorn. Build, destroy, rebuild. There is a structure in this relationship that perhaps needs to be an emotional structure that needs to be rebuilt, because that structure is a little too weighted with the Ten of Wands. It's too heavy to carry. It's something that needs to come to completion. It's a burden that needs to be sort of relieved of both of your shoulders here. Build, destroy, rebuild. That is Saturn energy, Saturn and Capricorn in particular, coming in and saying, okay, you built something together and the structure was not as sound as it could be. So now we're going to come in, me and Pluto, Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn on Sunday the 12th, coming in here and saying, let's break this structure down in order to rebuild. In order to rebuild a stronger, right, strength structure that is less perhaps emotionally indulgent and less based in fantasy. And I just say that because of the Neptunian nature of the Pisces energy associated with this card. A little bit less based in fantasy and more grounded in the beauty that's actually here in all its complexity. Authentic expression, Leo energy, authentic expression of self rather than imagined, idealized expression of self or happiness. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so Cancer, curious reading. We're going to take this into an extended reading where I'm going to use other decks to pull clarifiers. I feel that we definitely need some clarity here to start to illuminate and actually unpack what on earth this situation is talking about here. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, stick around. At the end of this reading, I'll put a little clip, a little preview of that extended reading so that you can see if it's resonating. And if it is, you click the link in the description box below and that will take you to Vimeo where you can view this extended reading instantly. Okay? All right, Cancer, take care of yourself extra, extra, extra during this lunar eclipse and the astrology of this weekend. I'll talk to you soon. I think those structures have to do with whatever this like mental, emotional burden is that keeps you stuck, that is too heavy between the two of you. It's like, take the heaviness out. Take the mind games out. Let it be simple. Let it be the compassionate, merciful meeting of two hearts that are open and grounded independently and interested in working together rather than battling one another. How can you collaborate? How can you meet to, it's interesting, build, destroy, rebuild. Here we see the rebuild.